According to spirituality, in studies of near-death experiences or NDEs, most people report gaining a stronger sense of connection to a higher power after near-death experience. They often feel they were shown a greater reality or experienced unconditional love. However, some people have negative or confusing NDEs, like feeling abandoned, lost, or facing emptiness, and those experiences can lead them to question or even lose faith in a higher deity. Positive NDEs often strengthen spiritual beliefs. Negative or traumatic NDEs can weaken or even destroy previous beliefs in God or a higher being. Spiritually speaking, some traditions say that the soul is challenged or exchanged during these experiences, and how one interprets what they see. Love, darkness, nothingness, judgment can shift their relationships with faith. Some might feel betrayed by what they experienced and thus turn away from their former beliefs. There are cases where people who had NDEs or even major spiritual crises come back with a completely different worldview, rejecting Christianity and embracing forms of Satanism or that are focused on self-sovereignty, liberation, and personal power, not worship of evil. In these cases, after the NDEs, some individuals feel like Christianity, especially traditional church teachings, represented a kind of mental slavery, a system of control, guilt, fear, and blind obedience. Satan, for them, stops being seen as the devil, evil entity, and instead becomes a symbol of freedom, rebellion, personal sovereignty, and self-deification. Modern spiritual Satanism, especially in movements like the Temple of Set, Laveyan Satanism, and Luciferianism, teaches that Satan is a mirror of true self. People who refuses to kneel, someone who becomes their own God. Some people say that during the near-death experience, they realize that God and evil are not as simple or black and white as religion taught them, and that true divinity lies within themselves. In spirituality, this path is seen as the left-hand path, not in the sense of evil, but in the sense of self-mastery, rather than surrendering to an external God. Examples of ideas people developed after such experiences: the church lied to me, divinity is within me, not outside me. Satan is not the archetype of rebellion and freedom, not evil. To be truly free, I must break the chains of religious indoctrination. My near-death experience showed me that heaven and hell are mental prisons, not places. Many of these people deeply value things like personal responsibility, honor, respect of nature, for nature, and truth. Near-death experiences, NDEs, are often portrayed as gateways to heavenly visions, unconditional love, and renewed faith in God. Yet not all who walk in thin line between life and death return with deeper devotion to traditional religious frameworks. For some, the near-death experience acts instead as a catalyst, violently shaking loose odd beliefs and opening the door to radical spiritual rebellion. There is a small but potent number of individuals whose brush with death leaves them rejecting Christianity. Not merely abandoning it, but actively moving towards Satanism or Luciferian paths, rooted not in evil but in personal sovereignty, liberation, and self-deification. In these cases, near-death experiences becomes a moment of awakening, a realization that the structures of organized religion, especially Christianity, are seen not as divine revelations but as systems of mental slavery, chains to be broken. Satan as the mirror of sovereignty. The radical reinterpretation: Satan is not the devil of Sunday sermons. He becomes a mirror, reflecting the individual's capacity to rule themselves, to think freely, to refuse external domination. Those who emerge from their N.D.Es into this new world often described a profound betrayal. They feel they were conditioned from birth to fear an external God, to deny their own power, to live in guilt. The figure of Satan, long painted as evil, now appears as the archetype of rebellion, the champion of individual will. They see him, or the mythos around him, as a symbol of liberated self, unchanged from dogma. This perspective aligns with modern Luciferianism and certain strains of philosophical Satanism, where Satan is not worshipped as a being but honored as the idea of personal enlightenment and non-servitude. Key mental shifts reported: God was a concept used to control me. I am my own master now. Satan showed me my true nature, unbound, sovereign, infinite. After my N.D.E. near-death experience, I could no longer believe in reward and punishment. Only self-creation matters. Heaven and hell were just illusions to trap the mind in fear. While scholarly data on this niche spiritual transformation are scarce, anecdotal evidence and underground testimonials are striking. I saw nothingness after death, no God, no evil, just me. I realized religion was the fear of death, and Satan symbolized courage. I embraced him, not as an evil lord, but as a mirror of what I could become, a god on my own right. An anonymous former Christian turned Luciferian, a near-death experience account. I begged for Jesus in my near-death experience, but no one came. In that void, I understood sovereignty is salvation. Satan was never my enemy. He was the light bearer. Christianity was the true prison. After dying, I didn't meet a bearded man on a throne. I met silence. It broke me. It rebelled me. I found Satanism not in hatred, but in reclaiming the right to define my own meaning. Personal testimony in 2020 forum post. These individuals often report a deep inner peace. Post-transformation, not the peace of submission, but the peace of self-acceptance and self-mastery. The archetypal meaning of Satan in esoteric traditions. Long before modern religions demonized him, Satan and figures like Lucifer represented complex forces in ancient spirituality. Lucifer in Latin literally means light bringer. In esoteric lore, he symbolizes knowledge, intellectual illumination, and freedom from ignorance. In Gnostic and occult traditions, the serpent of Eden, often linked with Satan, is seen not as a villain but as the liberator, offering humans the forbidden knowledge of good and evil, making them conscious creators rather than blind followers. The left hand path opposed to the right hand path.